Welcome one, welcome all to Sports Mecca. I'm Jacob Barter, here today with Will Dowling, our host/producer, and we hope you all had a great Thanksgiving holiday, great day, great time with your loved ones. As far as I can tell, everyone that I know did have a great holiday, except for one group of people, and that would be the Tennessee Vols. It was a rough weekend for the football team.
Very rough weekend indeed, and it was just a tough game all around. The Vols getting absolutely smoked by the Vanderbilt Commodores. Defense wasn't all there. Let's dive into these unfortunate highlights, shall we, as Tennessee took on Vanderbilt in Nashville.
Right, the big rivalry game between the two hated cities. A lot of fans from the Vols made the trip to Nashville to support the team, and they would have been really disappointed. Kyle Shermer had an excellent day. He was 31-35 with 367 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a lot of well-schemed passing plays. He had guys open all day.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Kyle Shermer versus the University of Tennessee, but he basically turns into a Heisman candidate when he's playing this defense. He smoked this secondary, like you said. Weird schemes that they line. I think they took some of Missouri's film and brought it to this game. As we see right here, Jarrett Garantano finding Josh Palmer on the far side. Weird day for Tennessee's offense. Not much rhythm going on, not much consistency. The biggest play of the day coming from Ty Chandler's 75-yard first play of the second half touchdown. Unfortunately, just was not the day for Tennessee offensively. What did you see from this team, that something that we didn't see all season long, an inconsistent offense and defense? What did you see overall from this team?
Right, I saw a team that was completely unable to move the ball outside of that one touchdown by Chandler, and a team that was unable to stop Vanderbilt. Right here, I believe this is Garantano's interception, his first interception in 5 or 6 weeks. He was the longest streak in Tennessee history of not throwing a pick, threw the pick there. And that really told the story for Tennessee all day. They were turning the ball over on offense. They couldn't get a stop on defense. They could barely move the chains on offense. They had one long play, that's it. It was a really disappointing day, both sides of the ball for the Vols. And usually we've seen one side of the ball play well and one side of the ball maybe not. Like against Charlotte, the defense played really well, the offense didn't. Against Kentucky, the defense again, the offense. Really both sides played well against Kentucky, but here neither side played well.
Yeah, and the Vols even caught a break. Vanderbilt losing their best running back, Keyshawn Vaughn, to concussion, bringing in backup Kari Blasingame, 20 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown, as Blasingame just absolutely torched this Vols defense, and as the backup running back doing it to a defense that's done pretty well all season long against the run game. As we saw in games like Georgia, Florida, pretty good with the running game, but it's just a tough day for the Tennessee defense overall, and I was very disappointed to see the motivation from this team overall all season. Starting at Florida getting smoked, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina. Let's move into it. What did you think about this team overall? What would you give the letter grade from this Tennessee team for the whole season entirely?
Yeah, this could be a little bit high, but for my letter grade for Pruitt's first season with the Vols, I'm going to give them a B, because based on what they had to work with entering the season, this is really not that talented of a team entering the year. I know that Butch Jones had his high recruiting classes, but a lot of those guys really haven't panned out here on Rocky Top. And I think to Pruitt's defense, with the cards that he was dealt, a lot of injuries to key guys like Trey Smith, a lot of inconsistent play, a lot of young guys having to make a play really well. Most of the secondary was true freshmen. So being thrust into a situation like that, I think the Vols did pretty well from what they would have had. No one expected them to beat teams like Kentucky or Auburn, and they did that. So I think for that, you got to give them a B because of what they did, the way they beat expectations. Will, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick more on the critical side. I'm gonna say about a C+. We saw coming into the season, Vols started going 0-8 last year. Worst Tennessee team in football history. I mean, it was pathetic season from Butch Jones and his staff. He had good wins at Auburn and Kentucky this year, bad losses to South Carolina and Vanderbilt, as he had that lead against South Carolina 21-7, and then Vanderbilt just getting torched by that offense. But Jeremy Pruitt brought a different toughness mentality to this team, and that's what I'm going to give the plus. I'm going to give a plus in the C category because of the toughness that he brought to this football team. He's that no-nonsense mentality that this program needs after Butch Jones, after running a roller coaster 4 or 5 years at UT, what Butch Jones did. He's just that no-nonsense coach. And everything that had to do with the offensive line and Tyson Helton, it was just an unfortunate season. So I'm going to go with the C+ with those good wins at number 22, Auburn, and Kentucky at home. That brought us back into bowl contention, but obviously it's not No bowl this season, Vol fans. I'm so sorry. So I'm going to go with the C+.
Yeah, I think Pruitt did have a good year. Let's go ahead and go to his press conference. He had some interesting words after the Vanderbilt game.
In hindsight, you can go back and say we could have done this or could have done that. I mean, to me, there's balls in the wide receivers' hands that their DBs knocked down, and there's balls in their wide receivers' hands that our DBs didn't knock down. You know, so it don't take many of those balls that go that way, and we didn't make a play.
Yeah, I really like what Jeremy Pruitt had to say right there. You know, bringing it next year in terms of recruiting moving forward, he mentions that any player that wants to come play in the country has the opportunity to come play immediately. That means every single position on this roster is open. And we heard yesterday at their team meeting, things were pretty intense. You know, Pruitt really laid out the schedule of how things are going to look for the next 2 or 3 years. And he basically told the team essentially that like every position is going to be open. So if you're a true freshman and you want to play immediately, the University of Tennessee is your spot with a good coaching staff, with Jeremy Pruitt, and pretty good talent that's still going to kind of stick around on this team. So I'm really excited to see how Pruitt, you know, recruits in the future on that mentality of you could play immediately in the SEC. So I'm excited to see how he does. So let's move in. Speaking of players, let's talk about which player you're most impressed with this season from both sides of the ball, offensive or defensive.
I'm going to go defense. I'm going to go with Kyle Phillips, the defensive lineman. This is a guy who came into his college career, and for his first 2 seasons, he really struggled with injuries. He really struggled to get on the field, play a full season. Last year in Butch Jones' final season, Phillips played as a defensive end, but this year he was moved to a defensive tackle in the Pruitt's new 3-4 defense, and he's really thrived there. He's always in the backfield making plays. He's always great at getting his hands up and deflecting passes. An excellent pass rusher, an excellent run stopper. I was really impressed with Kyle Phillips this season, and I would not be shocked to hear his name called on day 2 or 3 of the NFL draft.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I like Kyle Phillips. His grandfather is actually my postman, and he talked everything about Kyle Phillips, about how good of a defensive player he was. It took him time to develop, you know, that 5-star talent coming out of Middle Tennessee, but he really showed this season that he was going to be the player on the defensive side, that fast guy that could plug those holes. So I really like that pick with Kyle Phillips. I'm going to stick on the defensive side too. I'm going to go with Bryce Thompson. You know, he was a last-minute signee in this class this past year, probably one of Pruitt's best signees. He was an offensive talent in high school, averaged about 2,700 yards, playing wide receiver and running back, anything they want him. So he jumps to the defensive side in the SEC at corner. 25 tackles, 4 for a loss, 4 interceptions, most interceptions by a true freshman at the University of Tennessee since Eric Berry. So I'm going to go with Bryce Thompson. He was a presence on that side. And he had to cover receivers like Jerry Jeudy, Deebo Samuel, David Sills. I mean, that's a tough job for a true freshman, and to have 4 interceptions and a lot of tackles for losses and a pretty good amount of tackles and good deflections, and to be that presence on the corner on a side that Tennessee desperately need players to play. Obviously, moving him from offensive to defensive shows how desperate Jeremy Pruitt was to get players like that in the secondary.
Right. Thompson graded out as College Football Focus's best true freshman corner in the entire country. Alontae Taylor did finish in the top 10, but Bryce Thompson was number 1. Let's go ahead and move on. Some big news out of Knoxville yesterday was that offensive coordinator Tyson Helton's days might be done. Helton might be receiving, we're not sure exactly what's happening yet. There were conflicting reports on Twitter today, but it seems that Helton will be taking the job at Western Kentucky to become their new head coach. A few seasons ago, Helton was their offensive coordinator, so the move makes sense for them. But that leaves a big spot for the offensive coordinator for Jeremy Pruitt. Will, who do you want to see the Vols go out and get?
He has a lot of baggage, a lot of suitcases that come with him. And we're going to have to ask permission from the SEC. Please, Greg Sankey, give us Hugh Freeze. I love Hugh Freeze. Listen to this stat. 517 yards of total offense per game at Ole Miss, averaging close to 4 touchdowns with Chad Kelly, Evan Ingram, Laquan Treadwell. I love that. Why would you not want that as your offensive coordinator in the SEC? He obviously, we're going to have to ask permission, like I said, because he comes with the recruiting violations at Ole Miss. He knows the Tennessee recruiting landscape really well, as we fought over numerous recruits for him. So I think it's a great hire. I mean, why not? He wants back in the SEC. He's a great offensive mind. And here's the best part, Vol fans. He beat Bama twice.
Yeah, I think Freeze is also my top option. You said he's good at recruiting in Tennessee. Freeze was a high school coach in Memphis before moving to Ole Miss to take on that job. So that's an area with a lot of really talented football players that Hugh Freeze knows very well. I think that's the perfect signing for the Vols. But I have some other names for you. Freddie Kitchens right now is the Browns' interim offensive coordinator. That's the guy who is friends with Jeremy Pruitt. They went to college together. They were teammates at Alabama. And now Kitchens is doing such a great job with the Browns offense since Hugh Jackson has been fired and Todd Haley was fired. Baker Mayfield has come alive. He's thrown for 300 yards a game, 9 touchdowns, and 1 interception in those 3 games. So Kitchens honestly might be a name that is doing too good of things to even come back to Tennessee. I think if Kitchens is a possible hire, that would be an excellent move, but I could really see the Browns giving him a lot of money to stick around and be their play caller for the foreseeable future. Another name to look out for is Chip Lindsey. This is a guy who was a high school coach 4 or 5 years ago and is quickly moving up the ranks. He's now Auburn's offensive coordinator and their full-time play caller. Auburn did have a rough year a little bit on offense, so it's sort of a mixed bag with Lindsey, but he's a young, upcoming guy. He's a great recruiter. I would rather have someone like Kitchens or Freeze, but I would be okay with Chip Lindsey as the offensive coordinator.
Freddie Kitchens is a really cool name, too. I like that. And we saw Baker in his press conference yesterday. He said it's nice to have a play caller we actually respect, giving a lot of shade to Hugh Jackson, I think that's his name, the former coach that left for the Cincinnati Bengals a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, if you're able to turn around the Cleveland Browns,
come turn around our offense.
Please come. Please.
That's going to do it for this first segment here in Sports Mecca. Will and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break to talk about some Vols basketball after a big game against number 2 Kansas. So stick around. We'll be back.